Hi guys, it's Lynn here. I hope you're having an incredible day. Now today guys, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this gorgeous little Aztekium cactus and also how to care for it. Now it's a very unusual little cactus. It's not one that's seen for sale very often. I actually got this plant probably about 25 years ago now from a gentleman called David Quayle who was from the Cactus and Succulent Society. This is actually one he actually has grown from seed, and it was a very tiny seedling when I first got it, probably about the size of my little thumbnail there. And this one is actually the Aztekium hintoni, and there's only three species in this genus. One being Aztekium riteri, the second one hintoni, which is this one here, and a third one that was only recently discovered in 2011 called Aztekium valdezi, and that is an extremely hard and rare one to find for sale. And in general, these type of cacti are not commonly seen. They're very speciality cacti, and that's because they're extremely slow growing and certainly not a cactus for beginners. So if you're a beginner to cacti and you think, well, this is rather unusual, I'd love to grow that, I wouldn't recommend it for beginners because the reasons I'm going to go for in the care in a minute. But if you want to know sort of easy cacti to grow for beginners, then links up above to a video on the top 5 cacti for beginners. But anyway, this is about this amazing little cactus. If you're a bit more experienced, or we just want to know about this cactus in general, even if you're new to the hobby, very interesting little beauty here. And as I said, there's only 3 species in this genus, and this particular cactus, Aztekium, grows naturally in Mexico on steep cliff faces that consist mostly of gypsum and some limestone gravel. It's extremely very slow growing, and over time, over many years, it will form into little clumps, and it's an extremely small cactus. As I say, I've had this now for 25 years and it was the size of my thumbnail, so you can see how slowly it has grown over the years. And this is the new growth there, where it's all a little green at the top. It was hit by spider mites a few years ago, and it's made a great recovery. As you can see there, the new green growth. The little brown corkiness there is where it got damaged from the spider mite. And happy to say it's recovering really well, but I say extremely slow growing there. And so this particular cactus, Aztekium, is often seen grafted due to its very slow growth, and that's why it's not one that's easy to grow on its own roots. So when you see it for sale, it's nearly always grafted. This particular one, as I say, was grown from seed from a gentleman called David Quayle. Very lucky to have one that's not grafted, and it's still been going strong after so many years. A lot of them are very prone to rot, and because they're slow growing as well, because of that, a lot of them don't last very long term, and that's why they're often grafted. But this one isn't grafted here. And this particular cactus likes a lot of bright light, but it doesn't like intense, strong sun, all day sunshine. It tends to go a little bit yellow. And this particular cactus, even here in Ireland, we don't get tons of sun even in the middle of summer. If it's in too much of a sunny spot, it will tend to take a bit of a yellow appearance, and it goes sort of more of a green colour when it's given a little bit more shade. So ideally, this particular cactus likes to have either morning or late afternoon sun, and it can take a bit more shade than a lot of the other desert types of cacti can. So this is a good one if you don't live in a particularly very sunny country, and because it is small growing as well, it makes it ideal for apartments as well if you haven't got a lot of space. But as I say, it's really more for the more experienced grower, so do bear that in mind. And with the soil, now, as I say, this cactus, because it is so slow growing, is extremely sensitive to overwatering and damp soil and very prone to rot. So it's really important that this particular cactus, especially if it is growing on its own roots, as this one here, is planted in a very well draining cactus soil. And by that I mean a very gritty cactus soil. And I like to make my own cactus soil, which works very well for this particular little cactus, of 3 equal parts of a loam-based soil, and mix it with horticultural grit and horticultural sand. And links up above to a video I have made on how to make cactus soil in 3 easy steps and that particular mix is extremely very well draining. So just bear that in mind with these plants. Even if they're grafted, it's always best to go on the safer side and don't use a soil like a traditional houseplant soil that will hold too much water. So very well draining there. And yeah, so because this naturally grows in natural habitats, mostly on gypsum and also some limestone gravel, some growers will recommend adding a bit of lime to the soil. But personally, I've never done that. I know some growers have, and I know a lot of growers who never have. I've had this now for 25 years, and as I say, I always just use a very well drained cactus soil that I make myself, and I've had great success with that. And I say, links up above to that video if you want to check out how to make your own cactus soil. If you don't want to go to the hassle of making it, just make sure you get a very good quality cactus soil. And to be on the safe side, add extra grit and extra horticultural sand, not beach sand, to the mix. When it comes with watering, it's always best to use rainwater because these particular cacti are sensitive to hard water, which most tap water tends to be. If you're lucky enough to have tap water that is sort of a neutral type of pH, neutral which will be 7 points, nothing, and not any higher than that, you can use tap water then. Just allow the water to sit for about 24 hours to let any extra chemicals and chlorine to dissipate. And then you should be okay. But if you've got clean rainwater and it's not too acidic, fresh clean rainwater is great to use if you don't live in a very industrial place where there's loads of chimney smoke coming all over it and it's going to affect the water. But pretty much clean water rainwater is the best for this. Now when it comes to potting on, you're best to actually use clay pots, as you can see here. Now this can depend if you've got a grafted variety of Aztekium, because grafted, it depends on what the stock graft is. A lot of these will tend to probably be grafted onto like a Trichocereus stock, which again can take a bit more of a watering than the Aztekium grown on its own roots, as in this case. But I always think it's best to play safe and go very easy with the watering. As I say, they're extremely slow growing. Even the ones that are grafted will still be very slow growing. It's just that they do grow faster when they're on a rootstock. So I would be very careful with the watering here. And the clay pot is always a better one, because if you happen to be a little bit over too much with the water, or you give it a water when it's a very hot sunny period in the summer, and then you have a few very cloudy overcast days and it stays too wet, the clay pot will help to dry it out quicker, and definitely the best thing to do there. And what I would do with the watering then is from spring to summer, I would give this water this Aztekium probably every time the soil dries out. They can take a good watering during spring and summer, as long as you allow the soil in the pot to totally dry out before you water again. This is an absolute necessity, because if there's still water at the bottom there, or the soil is damp and it looks dry and you go ahead and water, it can be prone to rot even in the spring and summer. So bear that in mind. If you're not sure, you're best to be more on the drier side, because a cactus won't die from underwatering. As you said, they can go many months and even years without water, but it will certainly die from overwatering. But personally with this one, I water this every time the soil dries out completely. And depending on the temperature and the type of summer we're having, obviously it's better to play safe with the watering. And in the winter time, completely dry. I don't give this any water at all from early fall up until early spring. I'll probably start watering this again now when it comes into active growth, even though it's very slow active growth, probably from the April time. And from now, this winter here at the moment, I won't be giving this any water at all. Now, fertilizing. Again, it's an extremely slow growing cactus, and a lot of people think the more fertilizer they give, the faster it's going to grow. But what you would do with this case, and even with the grafted ones, if you over fertilize, you just get a load of weak growth, and also too much fertilizer can poison the roots and cause a lot of damage to your plant and the roots as well, and make the soil either too acidic or too alkaline. So just bear that in mind. I like to actually fertilize this cactus about once a month. And I use a cactus fertilizer, and I only use it at half the strength that they'd recommend for normal cacti because it is so slow growing. So I would dilute it to half the strength and just water it once a month from spring until midsummer, and then no fertilizing at all after that. Now, flowering, this particular little cactus never ever flowered for me. It's definitely the size of flowering stage. Obviously, when they're very small, they have to be a certain size to grow. This is definitely at the flowering stage now, and I'm hoping it will flower for me one day. The flowers are very, very tiny on this, and they're usually either like pale pink, white, or a little lilac colour. And it'd be interesting when this one flowers. You'll know when it's actually ready when it's mature enough to flower, because the very top will start to form a little bit of wool at the top in the middle there. As you can see, this has had a bit of damage from spider mites, so it may take a while to recover, which is why it probably hasn't flowered. But it's making a good recovery. I'm hoping it will form a little bit of wool maybe next year or the year after, and we'll get flowers. But that's when you know when it's mature enough to flower there. And yet the propagation, now this particular cactus, the Aztekium, is extremely difficult to propagate, and it is only really propagated from seed, which apparently I've never seen the seeds, but the seeds is very, very dust-like. And although when you first sow the seeds, there can be a good germination rate. Long term, the seedlings nearly don't survive. You probably sow a load of 200 seeds and you might get half or even 3/4 that germinate, but they're very difficult to keep going long term. A lot of seedlings will die within the first few months, so it's probably, I've never sown this from seed myself. Maybe one day if I get flowers and seed, it'd be good to do, purely as an experiment, but it's not the easiest. If you really want one of these, I probably would recommend getting one that's already either possibly been grafted or one that is on its own roots that somebody else has actually grown themselves from seed. It's probably a bit tricky to do it yourself unless you're extremely experienced. Now, temperature. These particular little cacti here like a minimum of 5 degrees Celsius in the winter months, which is about 41 degrees Fahrenheit. They can take less than this if you're living in a very dry, arid climate. But here we're in the Northern Hemisphere in Ireland, and it's very damp. And because of that, would overwinter at a minimum of 41 degrees Fahrenheit. But I've actually got this particular plant indoors in my grow room upstairs in my office, because it is such a special plant that I don't want to take any risks. So that's why I keep that one upstairs, but I still keep it totally dry all through the winter now. And that's really it. That's all the care on this. I'll just show you what it looks like. This, as I say, is the Aztekium hintoni. And as there's only 3 species in this genus, and this is the only one I've got, so I haven't really got any other examples to show you other than just sharing my experience of growing this cactus over the years. And as I say, this is only how I grow mine. Other people may have different opinions on what they would do growing for this cactus, but I hope that you found this useful. And if you've not familiar with this cactus, then hope you learned something today. And as I say, personally, if you are new to growing cacti, it's not one for beginners. I'll get a little bit more experience with it before you grow this. But certainly it's one definitely for your collection in the future once you get more experienced. And I just hope you enjoyed the video, guys. And if you want to know a little bit more about how to grow cacti and succulents in general, please do check out my website, desertplantsofavalon.com. And I want to send you loads of love, heaps of happiness, and tons of cactus power from across the Emerald Isle. And until the next video, bye.